It's live now.
Hi there, everybody. Welcome to our open book. Very good to be with us. Hello there, Randall Brown, Nancy Donovan, Larry Dominic, John Mahoney. Is that Sarah O'Brien, John Hassett, Caroline, Angela Kinnery, also Elise Madeline. Some of the people who've joined us. John O'Hara, the distinguished novelist.
I didn't know
C.V.
you're still with us. That's
Zimmerman.
exciting.
Yeah, I know. With us in spirit, at any rate. He must have had, that poor man who joins us many nights must have had a lifetime of jeering about that. So I'm just adding to it. We are joined by Susan Choi, one of the great American novelists. Her latest novel, Flashlight, is on the Booker Prize shortlist. And we had the honor of speaking with her a few weeks ago on our show on NPR. This is a novel that opens with a mystery and a tragedy. A 10-year-old girl named Louisa and her father, Cirque, are walking along a beach in Japan. He carries a flashlight, and next we see Louisa. Um, she's washed up by the tide and is struggling to breathe, and her father is gone. Uh, Turns out he couldn't swim. Um, what happened? What's going to unfold next? Does it ever stop unfolding? So, Susan Choi joins us now from Baltimore, where she's at Johns Hopkins University. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me. It's so nice to not just talk to you, but see you. I
Yeah.
think this is a first for me.
Oh, well, people often prefer not to see me, but thank you very much. Thank you.
Well,
I,
it's very nice to talk to you, but seeing you is just an enhancement, Scott. It's even better.
oh, God bless. Well, thank you. No, well, very, very good to see you. And help us bring us some insights with Louisa to wake up alive, but to also have suffered the most profound loss imaginable in her young life.
Yeah, she doesn't really know what's happened. I think that the book, well, the book hews very closely to her experience at times, but then the book also has many other characters whose perspectives we get to enter into. And I think it's helpful because Louisa, first of all, is a child when this catastrophe strikes and changes her life. And second of all, this catastrophe strikes. And so she can't be the only one telling the story, in part because it's a story about people who don't really fully understand what's happened to them or don't fully understand where the transformative events are coming from. So part of the story is about her very slow discovery of what that life-changing event actually was. She doesn't know for a long time.
And to what degree is this story any kind of alternate universe reflection of your family story? I know your father didn't disappear on a beach in the middle of the night, but
Oh, thank God, no. No, he didn't. He was with me until his 90s, actually, and passed away very recently. But
I'm sorry.
oh, thank you, Scott. I miss him every day, and at the same time, I'm just amazed at what a long, amazing life he had, and that I was able to be with him. And it's a very different experience from Louisa's, whose experience again, as you said, is one of this total rupture. And I think this story is sort of like a you know a make believe or like a dark speculation. Like, what if my family, um, who didn't who didn't suffer these almost unthinkable losses, what if we did? How would we have responded? What would we have been like? I think a lot of my work, partly due to um, unoriginality, maybe on my part, and partly due to this sort of perverse tendency to speculate into the unknown. A lot of my work does sort of start from a familiar zone and then kind of pushes into the unfamiliar. And so I had visited Japan as a little girl with my mom and dad, and we didn't suffer life changing catastrophe, happily. But I was so taken with Japan, I thought about it for the rest of my life until now and always wanted to write about it. And I think at some point I was seized by the idea of subjecting these characters who are, not completely unlike my family to this completely, unknown situation, and to see what would they do.
One of one of the lines, of which many lines that I make a note of at one point, understandably, of course, Louisa seeks help, and she says, "I don't want to remember anything." What do you mean? Tell me about this or that. Why would I do that? Uh, Makes perfect sense given what she's been through.
Memory operates in a funny way in the book. As I sort of said at the outset, part of the challenge of Louisa as a character is that she doesn't actually know what's happened to her. Memory has kind of just left her behind.
Yeah.
Did she block it out? I can't pretend to sort of explain psychologically what happens. I just wanted to experiment with what would it be like for someone to suffer a catastrophe that they don't remember? And yet, you do remember, even if unconsciously. That's what I believe. And so Louisa is a person who grows up formed by this event that she doesn't recall.
She can be hard to like at some points.
She can.
Um, there's a instance I won't. She almost blows up a college trip, and this is a scene that veers from hysterical to outrageous. I don't want to say I didn't enjoy it because I enjoyed it plenty, but I'm not sure I would have enjoyed it to be there.
Maybe not. I mean, I know, Scott, it's very rare for young people in their late teens and early 20s to behave in ways that they might find regrettable later. I know this is quite unusual, but she does do that.
Is she trying to fend off love, tenderness?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, she is. Yes. Or, if she's not trying to fend it off, I think she's running after the most, you know, inadvisable sources of it. And so,
So
yeah,
somebody sitting across from me just snorted as if that might be their life story too.
listen.
Thank God it's not my wife, but
No, thank goodness it isn't. But it is a thing that happens. It is a thing that happens to some people. And I think Louisa is a character who fends off I think she fends off the love of her surviving parent.
yeah.
And they have a very hard time with each other, this mother and daughter. And um that was an interesting kind of dark, fascinating relationship to write. In large part because it's unknown to me really. I think I was a tough teen for pretty mundane reasons, but, my mom and I are very close. I actually just got off the phone with her a few minutes ago, and it's very scary for me to imagine being violently at odds with her. But, I think I also have a fascination with these, uh these dark relationships and how do they become that way? I think they usually become that way, um out of a desire for the opposite, maybe, or at least in Louisa's case, I think she wants the opposite, and she and her mother are both so I think they're both so terribly devastated, really, by the loss of Louisa's father, her mother's husband, that they don't really know what to do with each other. I think
Mm.
that kind of catastrophe could draw the 2 survivors closer together, or it could really drive them further apart, and in this case, at least for a long time, it drives them further apart.
Can we take a couple of questions? They've been coming in for you from people who
Of
are
course.
Caroline will read them.
A question from Michael Dickens. How have your life experiences shaped your writing?
I mean, in innumerable ways, Michael. I have to say, I always write from experience to a certain degree, um, and at the same time, I'm always really interested in uh, these kind of fantastical uh, elaborations or embroideries. I don't know what famous writer it is who spoke of, having a pretty boring life. I'm paraphrasing. I've had a wonderfully dull, incredibly lucky life. You know, two loving parents, both of whom lived into great old age. My mother's still with me. I have wonderful children and friends, and I live a life of great sort of normal placidity. And at the same time, I think I'm always kind of fascinated by the more extreme situation. And so often I'm interested in writing about an extreme situation, but I can't just walk in there completely ignorant. So it's usually this weird mental exercise of imagining myself in that situation. How would it be for me if I was on the run from the FBI? Which has never actually happened to me. But I did find it interesting to imagine what sort of emotions I would experience under that kind of circumstance. And same with Louisa here. What would it have been like for me to lose my father in such a terrifying and strange way? So I think I write from my own emotional experience, if that makes sense. Um, but subjecting my characters to things that I don't know a lot about.
Mm. By the way, if I run the run from the FBI, I would be astonishing. I mean, all they'd have to say is, "Where's the closest pumpkin spice latte?" And they'd find me, right? But go ahead. Yeah.
They'd have to
I
wait
would
till
have done very
October.
well later.
Okay, a question from S.R. O'Brien. I had the pleasure of reading Flashlight. Can you tell us about your next project?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. And to be really honest, I cannot tell you much about my next project because I have not really found my way into it. I can tell you what I keep wishing my next project would be, which is I'm very interested in my paternal grandfather, who was a figure of some controversy during the early half of the 20th century in Korea. And I have always wanted to find a way to write about his life and the impact his life had on all the lives that followed his children, my father and my father's siblings. Um, but I've never succeeded in figuring out how to write about this family story. Should it be a memoir? Should it be a novel? I still haven't figured it out. So I don't know if that'll even be my next project because I've been trying to figure out for the past two books. And I ended up writing these other books instead of this book. So it may not be next.
I regret we had some audio problems there, but I'm told. Oh, we have a transcript that runs, so okay, we'll be fine. You can still hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Um, do you feel differently about your work when it gets shortlisted? I mean, what's that like to be shortlisted? Do you?
It's
I
really
know it's an honor just to be nominated, but do you
it
find yourself
is.
looking at the other names and thinking, "Ha!"
No, I don't. I have Kieran Desai's book right here on my desk. I just started it today. It's really wonderful. I'm going to be honest. It's stressful. I know I feel like we're all family here because I'm talking to you on this little phone, and you're so Scott. Even though I've never seen your face, your voice is so familiar. It's as if I grew up with you. So I can go ahead and tell you that I'm like actually quite stressed about the shortlisting because I'm thrilled. I am. I've never been shortlisted for the Booker, so it's a high point of my career. Um, I am scared about the what to wear, quite seriously scared, and that's no small consideration for me.
Mhm.
So I sort of wish um, Charles Yu, who's a wonderful writer who actually won the National Book Award in 2020, has this fantastic story called Standard Loneliness Package. And it's a speculation about in the future when you can outsource your emotional experiences to like call center, like instead of just outsourcing all of your customer service, you can actually just outsource everything and sort of avoid being present for emotionally extreme or challenging situations that you still have to show up for physically. And part of me wishes that I could just outsource the night of the Booker Awards to some fabulous surrogate and then hear about it later. Um, And at the same time, I'm excited. So I guess that's very contradictory, but, you know, nervous.
Honey, we have a daughter who's going to an award ceremony soon, and she just goes to H&M, right? Is that what you?
We can send a list.
Yeah, that's well. We have people here who will send a list. All right.
Is she like just a young willowy person who can wear H&M? Because H&M is that's what I picture. In any case, I'll consider that
I
shopping suggestion.
a question on your early literary life. I understand you were a fact checker for the New Yorker.
Yes, I was.
A few
Like one of my
occasions.
favorite jobs ever, ever. I mean, being a
Well,
novelist also is a great job, but being a New Yorker fact checker was an amazing job.
I have actually been on the scene profiling people when they've gotten calls from New Yorker fact checkers, and a couple of them have been hilarious. Bill Veck was a baseball club owner, now gone, and in his office, and he gets a phone call from the New Yorker fact checker that wanted to check what hand he smoked cigarettes with.
When you said baseball, somehow I'm not trying to claim I'm psychic, but I was a fact checker. Somehow I had a feeling hands might be part of the question. I didn't know it was going to be what hand he smoked with, but because baseball involves the hands so much, I wondered if it was going to be like what was his, what hand did he throw with, or something like that, or just making sure he hasn't suffered an amputation and have two hands, which is also a question that's been posed to people, just to make sure that when they're described as clapping, we know that they're clapping with two hands. Just checking. Yeah.
Oh my
We were very,
word!
very thorough. Very,
Well,
very.
I was going to ask, do you have any particular memorable inquiry you had to lodge?
Oh gosh. I mean, I've been reminiscing a lot about my fact checking days because there was a wonderful novel by Austin Kelly called The Fact Checker that
Yes,
came out this year. Yeah, I
talk to
wrote
him
it.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wrote about it for the Yale Review, and it gave me an opportunity to reminisce a little bit about my own checking days. And I was remembering both fun checking and scary checking. I remember scary checking an article about some political misdeeds in Liberia and having to ask, the presidential spokesperson about buckets of blood, just stuff that it just didn't seem like the press office was going to be happy with these questions. And then other really fun questions, like in my essay, I reminisced about fact checking Elton John's most recent renovation at that time of one of his residences, and getting to ask all sorts of questions about how many squash courts and how large, or maybe the squash and tennis courts had become rose gardens or vice versa. But exciting things had happened decor wise, and I remember getting to nail down all those details.
Um, Let me ask this too, and then let you get back to the evening. Do you work things out in novels?
Do I work things out in terms of like questions that are
That are,
kind of
that
pragmatic?
are questions that affect you, questions that intrigue you?
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes I don't necessarily know what the questions are when I start, but I also think that if there aren't questions, possibly questions that are so sort of thorny that it's hard to early on articulate what they are, um, I don't think the project works. I don't end up finishing it.
Mhm.
There's usually got to be some element of mystery, I think. And I don't mean like a literal mystery, like a mystery story, but something that's mysterious that I can't figure out. And and that's what keeps me going. It takes me a long time to write novels. I mean, I've never taken less than 5 years to get done with one. So I think I need to have something really eating away at me to keep going that the novel is helping answer.
Well, Susan Choi, thank you very much. Susan, of course, could you hold up a copy of your fine novel?
Oh, yes. I happen to have one right here.
Well,
Here it is.
how nice. And yes, and a beautiful cover. Susan
Love
Choi's
the cover.
shortlisted for the Booker Prize. We should hear about that soon. flashlight. So thanks very much for being with us, and we
You,
want to
Scott.
thank everyone for tomorrow night. We have Tim Green, right? Tim Green, the former Atlanta Falcons player who has been visited with ELS in recent years. Somebody is muttering at me.
He's written 42 books.
He's written 42 books, YA novels, and this one is
Wow.
and we conduct an interview with him in an unusual way.
Well, that's spectacular. That's not a number I will ever match, but I'm impressed as all get out.
All right. Well, we'll pass that along. So thanks very much for being with us, everyone, tonight in our open book. Take care. See you later. Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone.